So there's ordinary rich, and then there's rich rich. Unfortunately, I was just ordinary rich. Or I guess you could say fortunately, if you're poor. Anyway, my mom and dad were corporate lawyers and I lived with them and my older sister Cindy, who was more gorgeous than the most attractive model you can think of.
Aubrey, don't worry. It's because you're still growing. You're only 15 and I'm 17. I'm sure that by the time you reach my age, you'll be a total hottie too.
She'd tried to convince me from time to time. But if you looked at both of us, you'd be convinced that one of us was adopted because we looked nothing alike. I was just plain and boring looking. No one ever gave me a second look. But with Cindy, they'd stop and stare. Some would even want to take pictures with her. I bet you want to know how that eventually changed for me, right? Well, keep watching. I went to this super expensive school, and even though my parents were rich, they still struggled to pay the fees. But my classmates? Remember what I said about ordinary rich and rich rich? Well, they were loaded. The kids of multi-millionaires and billionaires. By the time most of them had their licenses, they'd drive to school in the most expensive cars imaginable, and sometimes, if they got into little accidents, they wouldn't mind. They'd just ask their parents to buy them a new car, even if it was just a scratch. No one paid much attention to me at that school. I had one friend named Regina, and we'd eat lunch together sometimes, but I spent most of my time in the library writing stories. I lived in my own little world, and I loved bringing it to life on paper. I had notebooks and notebooks filled with stories that I was hoping to publish someday. My parents wanted me to inherit their law firm, but I just wanted to be a writer. The beautiful girls in my class used to tease me about it all the time.
Oh, there's plain Aubrey writing in her stupid notebooks again. That's so lame. Instead of writing, why don't you go learn about fashion? Your clothes are ridiculous, and good gracious, you could use a whole lot of concealer and foundation on that face of yours. Yeah, and what's up with your hair? Ugh.
I went home crying that day, and Cindy greeted me with a hug.
Aw, what's wrong?
Everyone's laughing at me because I'm ugly.
They're just stupid. And besides, you couldn't be ugly if you tried. Anyway, I do have some good news for you.
What is it?
Well, it's your birthday next week and I signed you up for a total makeover. Not because I think you're ugly or anything. It's just that you're turning 16, and that's a good time for a change.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I wasn't too sure about it at first, but I just went along with their idea. My birthday came and we left that morning to go to a special type of salon where they took care of every part of your body. Hair, nails, face, toes, everything. I spent about 5 hours there, and when they were done, I could barely recognize myself. I was a total babe. Not only did they give me a makeover, but they also explained to me how I could maintain what they'd done. But it got better. When I got home, my few friends and all my family were there to celebrate my birthday. It was honestly one of the best days of my life because everyone kept telling me how beautiful I looked. The next week, when I got to school, people kept coming up to me asking if I was a new kid. When I sat in my regular seat in class, the mean girls surrounded me, and when they realized I wasn't really a new student, they looked a bit angry and walked away. Were they jealous of me? Then, two best friends, Alvin and Theo, came to sit next to me. They looked totally enchanted.
Hey Aubrey, you look different. Yeah, you're like a total hottie now. Do you want to go out with me next Saturday? Hey Alvin, shut up! I was gonna ask her out. Well, I asked first. It doesn't matter. Hey Aubrey, do you want to go out with me or this loser?
I was shocked. It was the first time any guy had asked me out. And the fact that two guys were fighting for my attention was enough to give me a headache. A good one. But hey, I forgot to mention that Alvin and Theo were billionaires. Their families were super rich, and they only hit on girls who were as rich as they were. Guys, please don't fight. Maybe I can go out with both of you. They agreed, but looked upset. They went back to their seats, but looked angry with each other for the rest of the day. I thought they'd sort things out amongst each other because guys are usually easygoing like that. But when I got home and checked my social media pages, I noticed that they'd deleted all the pictures they had together. Then they threw passive-aggressive remarks at each other, and I couldn't believe that this was really happening. I went to my sister's room to talk to her about it.
Oh yeah? Theo and Alvin? Everyone's talking about it. You're a total hottie now, so that's expected. It happens to me all the time. Welcome to the club.
So, how do I deal with it?
I have an idea.
The next morning, everyone gathered in the main hall for assembly. The principal was going over the boring rules, and then he started talking about friendship. That was when it happened.
Yeah, Principal George, I think you need to say that stuff louder for the people in the back. Yeah, people like Theo. Actually, I was referring to you, Alvin, you backstabbing son of a... Don't you ever come at me like that!
Suddenly, Alvin flew on top of Theo and they started fighting. The principal dropped his mic and stared. Clearly, he was confused. Then, what I saw baffled me even more. Cindy walked up to the stage and took the microphone from the principal.
Okay, boys, stop fighting. Everyone, listen to me, please.
The room went quiet.
These guys are both madly in love with my little sister Aubrey since her, glow up. She's a total hottie, right?
The crowd cheered. I turned completely red.
So here's my idea. Alvin and Theo, stop fighting. The two of you have to plan the most romantic date ever. You will both take my sister out at different times. Whoever plans the best date gets to be with my sister. Well, if she agrees, that is.
Alvin and Theo let each other go and stared. The crowd continued to cheer.
There, so that's that. We'll flip a coin to see who goes first. Alvin, your heads. Theo, your tails.
She took a coin and flipped it.
Alvin is first. You can have your date this Saturday. Theo, yours will be the following Saturday. Are we cool, everyone?
The boys nodded and the crowd cheered again. The principal took the microphone back and asked everyone to calm down. He didn't even comment on what had happened. I guess he didn't know what to say. I mean, I don't know what to say either. So let me skip the boring parts and get straight to my date with Alvin. His father has a few private jets because, like I mentioned already, he's a billionaire. Can you believe that he took me to France? He got his parents to ask mine for permission first, and they thought it was a really good opportunity, so they let me go. Now, most ordinary girls have their first dates at ice cream shops and pizza parlors, but mine was in Paris. The trip there was so romantic. We sat at a dimly lit table after we took off and had some non-alcoholic champagne because my parents told me I was still too young to drink. We played a few video games and then fell asleep. When we got to France, he had the whole day planned out for us perfectly. A tour guide came to pick us up from the airport and we had a tour of Paris. Then he took me to see the Eiffel Tower and after that, we had a romantic dinner. On the way back home, we sat close to each other and I eventually fell asleep on his shoulder. When we were almost about to land, he woke me up and said,
So, did you enjoy your date?
Of course I did. I had a wonderful time. Then he leaned in for a kiss and I nearly exploded inside. My first kiss after my first date in Paris on a private jet. How would Theo be able to top that? I wasn't even sure I wanted him to because I was already falling for Alvin. I'm gonna skip the boring parts of the next week and get straight to my date with Theo.
Hey, I heard that Alvin took you to France, but I have something much better. We're going to Thailand. I read one of your stories and I realized that you love learning about historical sites and that you're fascinated with other cultures.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Of course, Theo's parents also had their own private jet too, so getting there was no challenge. Because it was so far away, my parents allowed me to stay there for 2 nights on the condition that Theo and I slept in separate rooms. I couldn't believe they were being so lenient, but I guess it had something to do with him being filthy rich. Thailand was awesome. We spent one day at an amazing beach where we went rafting, kayaking, and snorkeling. I saw so many awesome sea creatures that I kept dreaming about them for months later. I learned a lot about Theo, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. The next day, we went exploring some of the temples and other historical sites. We even went to an elephant sanctuary, which was probably the highlight of the trip. While we were there, I held hands with Theo, and I thought that I was beginning to like him a lot more than Alvin. When I eventually got home, I explained to my sister that it was really hard to make a decision. I was falling for both of them. She laughed, then left her room because she had to go to the bathroom. She left her phone on her bed and I picked it up to take a selfie. I took about 10 of them, and as I was scrolling through them to decide which one I liked best, I ended up scrolling too far. Way too far. And what I saw made my heart sink. There was a picture of Cindy kissing Alvin. I checked the date and it was just 3 days ago, while I was out with Theo. Just as I was about to knock on the bathroom door to throw the phone in her face to ask her what that was about, I saw a text come in from Theo.
Just got back from my date with your sister. She's not half as amazing as you, though. Would you still consider going out with me? I miss you so much, babe, and I can't stop thinking about the last time we made out.
It turns out that even though I was hot, Theo and Alvin were just using me to get to my sister. Apparently, they'd had crushes on her for ever. And they had a bet between the two of them to see who could be her boyfriend. Instead of confronting my sister, I sent the picture and the screenshot of the text to myself and I posted it on all my social media pages. Now, everyone knew that Theo and Alvin were just jerks, and no girls wanted to date them anymore. My sister and I still aren't talking, and I don't know if things will ever be the same again. On the plus side, I'm still hot, so I will have my fair share of guys in the future. For now, I'm just focusing on my writing. I'm going to be hot, rich, and famous someday. Why live with evil geniuses if you can't learn to be an evil genius yourself? Have you ever heard of that saying? Well, now you have. Listen carefully and watch closely as I show you how I outsmarted a full family of evil geniuses. And who knows, perhaps if you watch attentively till the end, you might be able to grab a thing or two. And no one will be able to take advantage of you, ever again. Like and subscribe if you ever want to be successful. Now that's what I'm talking about. When my parents invited me to the city and enrolled me in the most prestigious university ever, I knew my life was going to take a turn. I just never expected it to be this turn. Growing up, I was always extremely grateful. Who would have thought that Miss Janet, the most mischievous girl in the entire orphanage, would ever get adopted? No, scratch that. Who would have thought that Miss Janet would be adopted by such a loving and caring family? The most surprising thing wasn't even the fact that I got adopted. It's the fact that I changed. Anyone who met me now would find it hard to believe me if I told them about my past. I was a totally different person now. A good person now, if I might say. A very good person indeed. My parents weren't exactly well-to-do, but they gave me everything I needed to survive while I worked hard to cover up for the rest. In my honest opinion, they actually gave me much more than what I needed, but I wanted to make sure that our tiny village hut was always in tip-top shape when they came during the end of the year. So I worked hard to earn money and make everywhere comfortable for them. I grew up alone because my parents were always off doing hard labor to make sure that I was always alright. At least, that's what I thought, until recently.
You're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere.
Anna, one of the maids, said, "Huh?"
You're messing the kitchen up.
I laughed. What was our maid saying exactly? I'd made good friends with most of the mansion staff. Apart from the fact that my parents and brothers were hardly ever around, leaving me lonely, I just wanted to know what was going on in our home, and house staff are always the best gossips. But why did a maid think she could complain about how I was eating when the only reason she was employed was so she could clean up after me? I laughed again. Perhaps she made a mistake.
Are you deaf or something? Oh no, wait. Yes. You're completely out of your mind. You have gone completely mad. I just told you that you're leaving breadcrumbs on the table and the floor while you ate, and instead of cleaning them up immediately, you just laughed and continued eating?
What the heck was going on? I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to use my privilege or do anything out of the ordinary, so I ignored her rude comments and continued eating the piece of bread that I picked.
You're just gonna ignore me?
Wait a minute. Why was no one stopping her? Was this the same way they treated my brothers? Anna, you're being really rude at the moment, and as much as I've tried not to react to this insulting behavior, I'm getting really angry and starting to lose my Before I could complete my sentence, Anna had lunged towards me and I felt a pain that I'd only ever felt in the orphanage once again. Anna slapped me. The maid really slapped me. I looked at her with wide eyes and an open mouth as she smiled victoriously.
Next time, listen.
No one even tried to stop her. A silence suddenly filled the room and everyone started shuddering. I looked up and tried to speak, but...
What absolute rubbish. Who do you think you are, maid?
And you all? You all stood here while Janet was insulted. Stop everything you're doing now and leave. Every single one of you is fired. And Anna,
My dad called out as she started leaving the kitchen in tears.
this is the last decent job you'll ever have. I'll make sure of it.
I turned to thank my dad, but he was gone, just like that. After the incident, the mansion staff began avoiding me. I tried to talk to them, but everyone shuffled past me so quickly that I started suspecting that they'd all been gifted superpowers. Finally, one day I cornered Sam, a gateman's son, in the hallway. Why are you guys so scared of me?
I should be asking why you're so freaking scary. You're nothing. You're nobody. Yet our master fired the whole kitchen staff for you.
He paused.
Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound that way. Please forgive me. Don't get me fired, please.
Why would I want to get you fired? I asked, concerned.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He kept thanking me as he ran away and avoided me even more after that meeting. Why did the mansion staff feel like I was nothing and no one, though? Is that why they accepted me willingly when I tried to make them my friends? How come no one knew that I was the last child in the Blessing family? Something was really strange in my household, and I was going to find out what it was. I tried to ask questions in school, but people avoided me like I had the plague. My brothers behaved like they didn't know me, and they were readily accepted by everyone else in the school. So, why was it different for me? I understood that the university was occupied by mostly men, but even the few girls in the school didn't want to associate themselves with me. I guess it was because they knew that I wasn't a billionaire like them, but it hurts. It hurt badly. How was I going to know what was going on in my family if everyone refused to speak to me? It wasn't over for me, though. I had one last recourse: the deep, dark web. Everything could be found online if you only searched hard enough, and I was determined to search as hard as I possibly could. During my search, I noticed that I had to pay for some apps to give me access to more features. I didn't hesitate in using the little savings I had to pay for those features. I never really had a lot of money, and I was used to it by now. My parents didn't have a lot of money. They were just staff in the mansion. According to them, they were lucky to get the position of master and mistress that they applied for. So they manned every other staff in the mansion, and that was why they could fire anyone. Because after the owners of the house, they were the next in power. The owners had also dropped specific instructions that the master's children should be treated like their own. We were technically the owners of the building, but nobody treated me like that. My brothers were the only ones who got the glory. But everything had stopped making sense at this point. And you know what made the least sense? The tiny, dirty room I was given in the basement. Even the maids got better rooms. No wonder they felt like they could talk to me in any way. After 1 week of searching, I found blog posts and videos that had been hidden from the world. My discovery was worse than anything I could have imagined. Now, every single thing made sense. Why I was adopted and abandoned in a village. Why my so-called parents only ever gave me enough not to die. Why my parents only came around once a year when it was time to take family portraits. Why my brothers acted like I didn't exist and didn't consider me a sister. Why I was given a terrible room in the basement, not even fit for a maid. Why the mansion staff didn't regard me, and why everyone in school thought I was a lowlife and didn't want to be associated with me. I wasn't wanted. I'd never been wanted. But one thing didn't quite make sense. Why not leave me to attend university in the village? If I'd been left there like I'd been for the past 13 years, I'd have never discovered the truth. Why take such a big risk? I had to find out. My father invited me to a big event. Apparently, their boss's friend was around and wanted to see the whole family. He told me that if I made a good impression, that he might get a better job and make everyone's lives better. He kept everyone at arm's length, and I tried to have a conversation with my brothers, but they ignored me as usual and just stood beside me. I didn't bother with my mom because she looked scared out of her mind like she always looked. Since I was so close to my dad, I put a truth serum that I'd gotten online into his drink. He had to tell me the truth that night. When he finally lost his guard, he confessed to everything while I secretly recorded his confession. He didn't believe that women served any other purpose apart from procreation, so he didn't give them jobs or chances. He also didn't associate with them because he felt they were below him. My mom's purpose was simply to give him 4 sons. And once she did that successfully, her new purpose was to smile and look perfect in pictures, and she played that role perfectly. The only reason he adopted me was for business. A competitor who used to be his best friend and who knew all his secrets wanted to bring him down, so he made up press releases and shared them to different media outlets, telling the whole world what the greatest businessman thought about women. He wanted his business to end because a lot of my father's investors were equally women. My dad did a lot of things to save his company, but the best thing he did that saved his image was adopting a poor 5-year-old orphaned child and raising the child properly. He laughed and said,
Actually, I didn't give a hoot about you. I just wanted you to think I did, and that's why I fed you all those lies. You thought you were being given the best, right? Women don't deserve anything good. I definitely didn't give you anything.
I knew all of this already, thanks to that article, but hearing it from my own dad's mouth, a man that I loved and worshipped for over a decade, really shattered my heart. Why did you bring me to the city, though? I would have never found out anything if you just left me in the village, you know? He smiled.
Another competitor was trying to give my school a bad name since I hardly ever admitted females. They wondered why my own daughter wasn't going to attend my own school.
Your own school? The university's yours? How didn't I see this online?
Yep, it is. And so many other structures, too. To quell the rumors, guess what I did?
You got me to come to the school.
Exactly.
Dad?
Huh?
Did you ever love or care for me just a little bit?
No, you were solely for business.
My dad didn't remember that he'd made such a terrible confession when morning came, so I had enough time to think strategically concerning the next steps that I was going to take. I continued schooling in my dad's school and I did my best to get the best grades in the school, but none of my course mates cared since they knew that I wasn't as rich as they were. They were wrong. When I shared the recording with my father, he was flabbergasted, and I was extremely excited. I insisted that he send me a monthly stipend that ran into billions, despite the fact that he kept insisting that doing that monthly for over a year would make him bankrupt. Distraught and confused, he sent kidnappers my way, but the leader turned out to be a guy I used to help when I was in the village. We hugged and caught up, and once we were done with that, we proceeded to have a civil discussion with my father concerning his behavior. He didn't try anything again after that. I saved every penny and invested it while working to earn the money I spent and living in my own house. Luck shone my way and my investments turned into gold, doubling and tripling in interest by 200% and upwards. I saved the company by buying it for pennies before it could turn to ruins, and then I fired my family from the company and separated myself from them legally. I changed everything about the company and started a new age. Why live with evil geniuses if you can't learn to be an evil genius yourself? I don't hate my family. No, not one bit. As a matter of fact, I love and appreciate them because they made me what I am today, an evil genius.
And where exactly do you think you're going? Looking and smelling like that?
God, Mom, not again! I'm just heading to school. Why won't you just let me be?
Not like that, you're not. Now go back to your room, take a shower, and wash your hair. You smell like a homeless person.
I don't mind. I shrugged. Why does it bother you so much? It's not your body.
Move.
Not the shower again. God. I really hate showering. To be honest, I hate a lot of things. I hate cleaning myself or my room up, dressing up for any occasion, leaving my room, going to school, learning, and every other thing that exists. They just don't make sense to me. Unfortunately, being a high school student and teenager, living under my parents' roof, I had no other choice than to do most of the above. But I hated them so much. Ugh!
Fiona, aren't you done yet? I'm sure you wouldn't want to arrive at your school late, would you?
My mom said in a melodious voice from the bathroom door. Mom, if you had simply let me go when I came out previously, I'd be in school already. Please, can you leave? I need some privacy. My mom quickly excused me. I'm sure you must be thinking that this isn't a great way to live my life. Well, no kidding. It definitely wasn't.
Watch this video till the end to find out how this dirty behavior almost ruined my life forever.
Yeah, and, click the like and subscribe button so we can continue with the story. Done? Great. Thanks.
Don't you just love how fresh you smell now?
My mom said as she walked me to class. I was late, so the halls were empty. Thank God. Mom, first of all, no. I don't love how fresh I smell. It's so rosy that I feel like throwing up. Secondly, please, can you stop here already? I told you that you definitely didn't need to drive me to school or walk me into the building. Yet, here you are, walking me to my class door.
So sorry, baby. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just really enjoyed walking and talking with you. I'll go now. Bye.
She ran off once again. Yeah, right. Walking and talking with me? More like walking and arguing with me. Or walking with me and shouting my head off. Bye, Mom, I said behind her as her figure slowly disappeared from my eyesight. Mom needed to accept it once and for all. There was absolutely no way I was going to become a girly girl who cared about looks, smells, and all that. No way. I opened the door and went straight to my seat. No one noticed me, not even the teacher. I was fine with that. People hardly noticed me anyway, and if my teacher had noticed me and just how late I was, she would have punished me somehow. Besides, the few people who had ever spoken or been nice to me either simply wanted something and changed once they got it, or just wanted to bully me. Being noticed, in my experience, wasn't, had never been, and would probably never be a good thing. I was a happy loner. School finished and I went back home to rest, repeating this boring cycle day after day until one unfortunate day, during lunch break, when I was silently and carefully walking to a table where I could sit alone and enjoy my lunch in silence when someone suddenly bumped into me with brute force. It was the most popular girl in our school, Bridget. As a result of the heavy bump, my food and drinks emptied themselves on Bridget's body and she looked like she was about to explode.
And what the heck are you staring at, you flipping fool?
Me? Oh, I'm just amazed at how red a human can actually turn. You look like a potato. On fire. Everyone laughed and Bridget quickly turned around to find who was laughing, but she couldn't catch anyone because they stopped laughing immediately she turned. No one wanted her trouble.
You fool! Look what you did to me! Aren't you going to apologize?
Apologize? Are you kidding? I was carefully walking to my table when you bumped into me, wasting my lunch in the process, and you're asking for an apology? Are you out of your mind? What's wrong with you exactly? When you're walking and talking with your minions, don't you think you should watch where you're going so you don't bump into unsuspecting humans? If anyone should apologize, it's you. Uh-huh. What are you waiting for? The lunchroom went quiet. People were anxious because no one ever spoke to Bridget that way. Honestly, now that I think about it, I don't know what was wrong with me. I really went overboard and I shouldn't have. The right thing would have been to simply render an apology and help her get cleaned up even if it wasn't my fault. Just to avoid future problems, but I guess something in me knew that I was already in deep trouble with Bridget after that encounter. An apology and even licking her feet wouldn't have helped. Angrily, Bridget grabbed a handful of some kind of paste that someone sitting on a chair close by was eating and threw it at me, but I thankfully dodged it just in time. It flew over my head and landed on Bridget's brother, Bright's head.
Oh, Bright, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to.
But he wasn't listening. Before she could complete her sentence, a plate full of spag had landed on her face. Her minions responded by stoning Bright and his friends with food. A random person in the crowd screamed,
Food wars!
And the hall went crazy. Everyone started fighting with food to the sheer horror of the kitchen staff. I tried to quietly slip out of the hall unnoticed, but before I could disappear, a dirty hand stretched out from the dirty fighting crowd and grabbed me. It was Bridget. I tried to force my hand out of her grip and looked up too late. Her hand was coming at me with force, and I suddenly heard a heavy thud on my cheek, releasing hot tears from my eyes as it left my face.
Don't think this is close to over. This is just the beginning of your punishment.
I ran out of the hall crying. I came back to school the next day and heard that Bridget had been suspended for 2 weeks. Apparently, our shy and quiet math teacher witnessed everything that unfolded from the corner of the hall. He saw Bridget bump into me and demand an apology. He also saw her start a food fight and give me a terrible slap. He didn't do anything to intervene, but simply went straight to the principal. The principal even called me to his office later that day and apologized on Bridget's behalf. As happily as I was that justice had actually prevailed for once in our lives, I couldn't help but feel terrible. There was a pit in my stomach because I knew that Bridget was definitely at home right now, plotting the ultimate revenge. I was done for. Everything happened just as I had expected it to. Bridget came back to school and I automatically became a target for her and her friends. I was already a sad and unhappy loner who hated everything and everyone, but Bridget's pranks just made me more miserable and I didn't want to attend school anymore, but I didn't know how to break the news to my mom. Bridget made everyone believe that I had some kind of disease that caused sores all over my skin, which was why I hardly bathed or washed my hair and always wore long sleeves. As a result of this, people did everything they could to avoid me, while some idiots even went as far as pouring soapy water on me and asking me if it hurt.
How badly does the water hurt you? It must be stinging right now, right? Well, I hope it burns.
My mom noticed that I was withdrawing myself from the world even more, and although she tried to talk to me about it, I didn't know how to explain anything to her. I just sat by the corner, remained quiet, and cried. This annoyed my mom, and she stormed the principal's office the next day, telling him that her daughter was a victim of bullying and the principal was doing nothing about it. Surprisingly, from the place I hid, I heard the principal attack my mom instead of consoling her. He told her that I had always been a depressed loner and my problem was definitely not from school. In other words, he was calling my mother a bad mother. She left the school fuming, bumping into Bright on the way, who was also eavesdropping on the conversation but not doing a very good job of hiding. To my surprise, after overhearing the conversation between my mom and the principal and seeing just how bad I was having it, Bright, Bridget's twin brother of all people, started being really nice to me. I honestly wasn't used to such kindness, so I quickly fell in love with him. Besides, he was also really stunning and handsome. He was practicing basketball one day, and I sat quietly, admiring his skills and muscles, when a girl I'd never seen before approached me.
Food for the eyes, am I right?
She laughed. Who are you?
I'm nobody, but I know what it feels like to have a crush and keep quiet about it. It kills you slowly from the inside. I think you should tell him how you feel quickly, before it's too late. Besides, everyone has seen how nice Bright has been to you lately. It's obvious he has a crush on you.
Really?
Obviously.
This discussion gave me the boost of confidence that I needed, and I walked straight to Bright once he was done with his practice.
Hey, pretty. Want me to walk you home?
Bright, there's something I want to tell you.
What's that? Go ahead.
He laughed.
You're making me nervous.
I like you.
What?
He laughed.
Fiona, you don't really think we can date, do you? Look at me, and I mean, look at you. How do you think that can work? I was just being nice because I felt bad about what my sister was doing to you. But you're obviously taking it the wrong way. Don't talk to me ever again.
Bright quickly walked off and left me standing all alone on the basketball court. I cried throughout the night, but what awaited me in school the next day was even worse. Videos of me telling Bright how I felt and being rejected were all over the school. I ran back home crying and finally got the courage to tell my mom everything that had been happening. She was sad, but after a few minutes of brooding, she told me that what I needed was a makeover. What? Mom, you just look for every opportunity to dress me up. This is a serious problem, not a makeover problem.
Honey, I know what I'm doing. Just trust me this once, okay?
Fine. My mom did magic on me, and to my surprise, the makeover was certainly my style. Nothing too fancy, nothing too girly, lots of black and dark colors, but I still looked amazing. I stepped into school the next day, and no one believed it was me. Most people thought I was a new girl. My hair was curly and longer, black with hints of light brown. My clothes were new and cleaner, and my boots just made me feel like I could tell anyone to do anything, and they'd happily do it. I was right. I decided to listen to my mom from then on. I showered and washed my hair regularly, dressed great, made sure I always had jewelry and perfume on, took care of my skin, my room, and my environment, and to my surprise, I actually stopped hating life as much as I previously did. I became popular in school because people wanted to talk or hang out with me in any way possible, and some students even started copying my dressing. It was the new fashion, apparently. Bridget and her minions became very nice to me, and even asked me to become one of them, but I politely declined her so-called kind offer. Bright came back to apologize and talk to me, asking if we could be friends at least, but I rejected him, making sure someone was there to record it so we could share it across social media. Despite the embarrassment I gave Bright, he didn't give up. He kept chasing me like his life depended on it, and it kind of freaked me out because I still liked him. I was just too hurt, embarrassed, and proud to admit it. When my mom noticed that Bright was trying to date me after seeing him in our compound so many times, she reminded me that he did his best to make me feel good when his sister was tormenting me for no exact reason, apart from the fact that he wanted me to feel better, so he deserved a second chance at least. I reluctantly agreed with her. I told him that I would go on a date with him on one condition.
I'll do anything to prove to you that I'm not a jerk.
Good, because we're going to prank your twin sister and her friends, and you're going to be the one responsible for everything.
I think that's fair. I'll do it. Eek! Bridget has no idea what's coming for her.
We both laughed. After playing just a few pranks on Bridget and her friends, with them being clueless concerning who was messing with them, we realized that we enjoyed being in each other's company much more than hurting Bridget and her friends, and we shared our first kiss. I really turned a new leaf, and my life turned around for good. Whenever I felt sad, anxious, or depressed and tried going back to my old ways, my mom and my boyfriend Bright were always there to encourage me to keep pushing. They did this until I was a totally new person with automatic habits, and I loved them for it. With Bright's encouragement and motivation, I joined the school swimming team and started excelling in competitions. I and Bright were really the school's power athlete couple, and he proved to me that he loved me and was ready to do anything for me. I gave life a chance, and it gave me happiness. Please do this happiness. Please do this happiness. Please do this happiness. Please do this happiness.